Hi everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Dwarf Fortress. I'm Sir Tristan. In this episode we are going to talk about alcohol, or drinking, or being thirsty in general. In the last episode we got our sleeping quarters down here at the very top of our fortress so far. So that's one need taken care of, the need for sleep and shelter. Now we have another need we need to take care of, and that's thirst. So if we, actually let's go back down a level and hit K to look. Let's take a look here at Vaughn, press enter, and enter to see his thoughts and preferences. Now, if you look toward the very bottom, where my mouse cursor is here, it says he needs alcohol to get through the working day. Alright, let's take a look at Locke. Same thing. He needs alcohol to get through the working day. Now you can trust me when I say this, every single dwarf needs alcohol to get through the working day. They can't survive without it, they can drink water, but they need alcohol. If they don't get it, they start to suffer penalties to combat rolls and to the speed which they work, and the quality of their items that they make suffers. So you want to make sure you are always providing alcohol. How can we do that? Well, I mentioned very briefly in the last episode the still. It's a type of workshop that makes alcohol. So, if we press B for building or placing, and then W for our workshops, just like in the last episode, you can see towards the bottom there's a still. To build a still, we press L, and you can see now we have our selection here. Let's go ahead and put it right here is fine. This is all going to be temporary. Let's pick a hazelwood log. Press escape, escape again, and unpause. And now let me press Q to check the building preferences. In order to build this, we need brewing or plant gathering. I'm pretty sure, we go up a level, that I found someone, or that I gave someone that skill. Press K, go down to see this guy here. Rydia, okay, well she's our farmer, that's right, I remember from the last episode. So let's unpause, let her come down and build the still. And it's done. Press Q, remember from the last episode, Q to set building preferences or tasks, and we'll mouse over, or cursor over, the still. Add a new task, which is A, and we can either extract from plants, or brew drink from plant. Now most of the time you'll be brewing drinks from plants. Every single plant in the game can actually be made into an alcohol. The most common is usually plump helmets, because you can farm them for food. You can plant plump helmets in a farm plot, and it'll become food, and then they'll eat the plump helmet, and then the seed can be used for whatever, or the seed can be planted, and then the plump helmet can be turned into alcohol. That's usually a common loop that people do. But you can get any kind of plant, really, well, any kind of, I guess, non-cloth plant. There's a list here. Let me just look it up real fast. I've actually already got it open. Plump helmets, pigtails, cave wheat, sweet pods. These are the interior. Oops. These are the interior ingredients. Plants that have to be grown indoors. And then you have all your outdoors. For the most part, I'm going to be sticking with plump helmets, because they're very common, again, like I said, and that'll be a main source of food for quite a while as well. Music is really quiet, isn't it? Let me turn it up one here. There we go. So yes, I'll be using plump helmets most of the time. You could also extract from plants, which, let's actually take a look at that as well. Still. Let's look at extract. Okay, it doesn't really explain what extract from plants means, so let's type in extract from plants. Not from planets, from plants. So I don't see anything here that's going to be too obvious, so we'll just skip that explanation for now. By the way, the reason that I am showing you this, me looking through the wiki, is because no matter how thorough I am in a tutorial, no matter how many episodes I can put in here, I will never be able to cover everything. And so part of you playing this game, you're just going to have to get familiar with searching for things in the Dwarf Fortress wiki. And you've seen me use it about 3 other times. It's not too hard to use, right? Oftentimes I find what I'm looking for, sometimes I don't. We may just have to experiment with extract from plants in the future. But for now, we're going to set a few drinks to be brewed. So let's press B, and it automatically set it up. Now, we could add a bunch like this until we reach, I think 9 or 10 is the max. It's kind of really hard to keep track of, though. We could cancel all those with C and just press R to repeat, and you'll see in the upper right corner next to brew drink from plant there's a capital R for repeat. You can toggle that on and off with R. Basically means he'll do that forever until he either runs out of materials, runs out of things to put it in, or gets killed by a goblin or whatever. So maybe we won't do that though, because we don't want him to basically use up all the plump helmets making alcohol. So we're kind of in this weird spot now, like, how many do we make? That's kind of an interesting thing, right? Like, surely there's got to be a number somewhere, like how many drinks do we have? And, I mean, we have 7 dwarves. Can they, do they have more than, 10 drinks? Like, well, there actually is a menu. Let's go back before we do anything here. And if you see down here, if you follow my mouse towards the bottom of the list is Z, status. Press Z and you get this menu. There's 4 different breakdowns: animals, kitchen, stone, and stocks. The basic one, the basic menu here, animals, is not a part of this. This is its own menu here. It gives you kind of a general overview of what your fort looks like. You need a broker with the appraisal skill to see your created wealth. You need a broker with the appraisal skill to see trade information. If you remember correctly, I actually gave one of our dwarves appraisal skill, trading, judger of intent. He's going to be the guy that starts trading when traders come in. And we don't have that information now because we've not set him up to tell us that information. But you can see down here, underneath that, we have food stores. We have about 200 food, 40 meat, 50 fish, 20 plants, 50 drinks, 30 seeds. These question marks are here because we've not assigned anyone to count. There's a specific position that you assign a dwarf to. You give him an office, which I'll explain how to do later. And then he will basically be in charge of counting everything. So we will know exactly what we have on hand. Each one of these can be broken down further, which I'll show in a minute. But over here on the right, you have population, 7, and then you have examples of each one of these, how many you have of each type. Now this is not always accurate. This is going to be based on what their highest level skill is. It's accurate now because all I've done since loading up this game is basically just kind of start playing, and nobody has been able to acquire skills outside of the skills I've given them. But let's say I went and turned one of my miners into a jeweler. He would not show up as a jeweler until his jeweling skill became high enough to trigger. So this is not always going to be accurate. So I wouldn't recommend using this to keep track of how many dwarves are doing what. There's a separate program that I'm going to go over in a few episodes that does a much better job than this population section right here. So ignore it for now. We will go press enter on the animal screen. I'm just going to show these very briefly here. Press enter on the animal screen. You can see all the animals that we have up and down. You can look at each one if you wanted to. Remember that I set each one of these to show up during our embark, and I'll explain more about this menu later. Go over to the kitchen, press enter. You can see the only ingredient for food we have right now is plump helmets. And you can also see on the very far right, permissions for plump helmets. Do we want to cook them? Do we want to brew them? Sometimes you want to turn these off if you're running low on something. You don't want to brew all your plump helmets because then you won't have any left and you can't get seeds if you don't have them and you can't plant them. So you sometimes want to toggle brewing or cooking certain things off. For now I've got a decent number, so I'm okay with this. Press escape, go over to stone. This will show us a list of all the stone our dwarves have found within this fortress. Use the plus and minus keys to go on. No. Oh, no, just the arrow keys. My mistake. You have economic stone, which you can go up and down through the list. We found marble. Wait, that's not quite right. We haven't found marble here. We found chert. Where is chert? Oh, it's under other stone, isn't it? I'm going to press tab. There we go. There's chert right there. So, it actually is not showing us... Yeah, that's right. It's actually not showing us what we found so far. It's showing us stones that won't be used. Remember how when I built the 2 chert doors, I was not worried that it would take the hematite and turn it into a door? That's because hematite, if we find it on this list, should be red. Sure enough, it's red. And if you look down here, restricted stones, in red, are reserved for use by the listed task. Now, that doesn't mean anything right now. Don't worry about it. Basically means that dwarves won't use this unless they're specifically told to use it. So that hematite that we found will sit there on the floor for forever. Now if I hit tab and go to other stones, all of these stones will be used at any point. And I don't have most of these here. I'm just going to do the list real fast by holding the down arrow. Most of these aren't going to be on the map. We know chert is here. Let's go and find chert. And if we wanted to, we could press enter and disable it, so that dwarves would not use chert automatically unless we told them to. But there's going to be tons of chert. We don't have to worry about it, so we'll just leave that screen. We won't deal with that screen for now. This is the important screen that ties into the food stores, or the stocks. Press enter on the stocks while stocks is highlighted. And you can see now there's a big breakdown on everything that we have in our fort. We have 40-ish meat, around 50 fish, no raw fish, no eggs, 20 plants-ish, no prepared meals, some powder, which is our sand, about 50 drinks. So, you get the idea. Everything ever that our fort will contain is here. You can press, where is it? Tab to enable search. So you can type in meat, and it would show you all the meat in all the barrels. And this is, again, not going to be accurate because someone has not gone through and counted. So it will be showing some things, but it also won't be showing others. So we have about 50 drinks, which is pretty good. We have 7 dwarves. Dwarves only need to drink about once every 3 weeks, which is kind of hard to tell time in the game other than the date. Oops, let's pause it in the upper right corner if you remember from like the 3rd or 4th episode. The date we'll explain it there. So dwarves only need to drink once every few weeks. If you ever see a dwarf with a blue down arrow, and I'll try to point it out if I ever see it, that means that he's thirsty and he's going to run off and try to find something to drink. For now, oops. Well, looks like we have Rydia in there. Let's hit Q to look at the still. Yeah, sure enough, she's brewing a drink. The A, by the way, means that it's active. Someone is doing it right now. That's right, I did set it to brew 1 before. Let's add a few more. Brew a drink from a plant. Just go ahead and add, I don't know, like 7. We'll unpause it. There we go. And she'll just brew them. And if we hit, what was the button? T. T is the button. Remember, T is to view, or Q is to view what a building is doing, and T is to view what's at a building. So sure enough, we have a dwarven wine barrel, 5 plump helmets, and at the very top, it's made out of hazel wood. If you look on the right, TSK basically means that whatever is here, so these 5 plump helmets, have been assigned to a task. A dwarf has claimed those and said, hey, they're mine, don't touch them. Basically means that if another dwarf tries to pick it up, won't be able to. It causes issues sometimes, like if one dwarf assigns something and then another goes to pick it up, and then the first dwarf gets it, the second one will be like, wait a minute, I can't find this, and sometimes cancel the task that they were doing. If there's nothing left, if there is, then they'll go elsewhere and look. But we know for sure that Celeste is going to continue. Hey, look at that. We have someone using our bed. Hit K, and we'll go up and take a look. It is Waka, our expedition leader. Cool. He's using the bed. Alright, anyway, Celeste is bringing... Now, I'm not sure... Not Celeste. Rydia. I'm not sure if you saw this, but she took a barrel to the still with her. You need barrels to put drink... Oh, there goes a lot of people sleeping. You need barrels to put drinks in. Let's press T again. Now we have a dwarven wine barrel here, and one here. Let's press Enter to view the item. It's a hollow cylinder with a removable lid. Right, we knew that. Press V. Dwarven wine barrel. Maple. V is for the description. Alright. Looks like there's 25 dwarven wine on the inside of this thing. You can see that right here. Now chances are, Rydia did not make this 25 wine. She probably grabbed a barrel that already contained a large amount of wine and is just carrying it here to put more into. By the way, each unit of wine is basically one is expended each time a dwarf needs to take a drink. So you don't have to worry about, oh, like, you know, how many drinks is 25? Well, it is literally, it will satiate a dwarf 25 times. And that's all there is with, oh, there you go, he just took the seed that he made. What she did was she took a barrel and a plump helmet, made the alcohol, but she still had a seed left over. So she took the seed and she carried it away, as you saw. I'm not sure if you saw, but it was pretty fast. And she's going to take it. You can see her right here. I'm circling. May not be her, but it's someone. Is going to take the seed and store it with the other seeds. There you go. So now we have seeds that we can plant for the future. Whenever you take a plant and you brew a drink from it, it does not use up the seed. You still have the seed left over. Same thing for when a dwarf eats it. So if a dwarf eats a plump helmet, there will be a seed left over. When a dwarf brews a plump helmet, there will still be a seed left over. That's why sometimes you don't want to, if you press Z to go into status, we go to kitchen, we probably don't want to cook with plump, there, plump helmet spawn. Let's go down to plump helmet spawn. I'm not sure why some seeds are named seeds, like the pigtail right here, and some are named spawn, like plump helmet spawn. Either way, it's the same thing. Those words are interchangeable. And as you can see, I pressed tab, by the way, to get between like the different types. So this is alcohol, this is going to be food, this is, well, fruits, vegetables, leaves. In the top left corner you can kind of see this is seeds, this is drinks, fish, meat, etc., etc. So we'll look at seeds. And right now, you cannot cook with plump helmet seeds. It would actually be a bad idea if we toggled that on, which I just did. You see it turn blue? Because now, if I had a cook brewing up meals, he could take these seeds, which I need to plant to build more plump helmets. He would take them and use them all to cook. He would be able to make meals out of them, which is good. But I would lose my rotation of eat a plump helmet, get a seed, plant the seed, get a new plump helmet. This will actually mess that up. So oftentimes you never want any of your seeds to be cooked or brewed. You only want the plants themselves that come from them, because that will always leave a seed behind. Alright, so that's it for alcohol. Now, there is an easier way to manage how much alcohol you have, and alcohol is one of those interesting ones because the more dwarves you get, the speed at which that gets consumed goes up a lot, very quickly. Will you start running out of alcohol? So knowing exactly how many to make is actually pretty hard. There's a DF hack function. No, I'm actually looking at the wrong thing. Called workflow. Let's go to Lazy Noob Pack. That's what I was looking for. Under DF hack tab, workflow is actually turned on. I'm not going to use it right now because it's more of an advanced topic, and I don't want to get into it right now. Remember that I want to cover the basics first so that we understand how the game functions at its core before we start using all the DF hacks that are actually going to make the game a bit easier. But I want the basics first. So for now, we're just going to be brewing plants the old-fashioned way. So what happens if you run out of alcohol? Or what happens if dwarves can't get to alcohol? Or what happens if your dwarf gets into a fight with a goblin? By the way, there's a lot more threats in this game than goblins. I just like using that as an example. What happens if a dwarf gets into a fight with a goblin and gets both of his legs cut off, or both of his arms, and he can't drink anymore? Well, any dwarf that can't get to alcohol, or when alcohol runs out, or any dwarf that's in a hospital, will need you to drink water instead. You need to set a water source as a backup in case the worst happens and you run out of alcohol to drink, or again, you can't get to it. We have a few different places we can get alcohol from. Press K, and we're going to look at the brook here, and we'll go down a level, which we know has fresh water. If we go up a level and unpause, we can see water is flowing in from the outside. The tiles on the edge here will supply, press K again, I go down to the bottom here. These tiles here on the edge, I guess maybe technically the tiles just south of these that you can't see, will provide an infinite amount of water. And so you can kind of see right here, these 6s and these 5, they kind of will always flow right there, and they will always empty to fill up the river or the brook. So you kind of have an infinite water source. And then we have these little pools or ponds, which are not infinite. Did I accidentally do something? No, okay. I thought I accidentally did something, but I did not. We'll go down into the pond. Remember, it's murky and stagnant, which means if somebody drinks from it, it's actually not going to refill. Now, it will take a bunch of drinks, take a bunch of drinking to run out of water in these, and it will refill when it rains. Rain will refill murky pools and stagnant water. But I don't like the idea of drinking from a murky pool, stagnant water. Sounds kind of gross. So, we can go back to the main menu here, and we can set a section of this river, or of this brook, to be a water source. In order to do that, we need to set a water source zone. So, that's a new, oops, I accidentally zoomed out a little bit. There we go. That's a new submenu. If you see my cursor here, zones is I. Unfortunately, that's one of the few hotkeys that does not really line up with zone. There's no I in zones. You're just going to have to memorize I as zones. So press I. And just like all of our other designations, we pick a start point and a stop point. So I'll press Enter. We'll drag it down to the lower left. And you can see, it's kind of hard to see with the green, but right where my cursor is the flashing icon. I've just taken it away. Press Enter again, and now they're all flashing. With my cursor within this area, in the upper right here, you now see Activity Zone number 1. We can set it to a bunch of different things. A water source, a fishing spot, to gather picked fruit from, to dump garbage, to pasture animals, a pit or a pond to discard things, a sand gathering place, a clay gathering place, a meeting area, a hospital, a training area, or just if it's active or not. By default, they're all active. I'm toggling A right now, you can kind of sort of see active is highlighting and not. I can press W to make this a water source, so now dwarves will instinctively go to this spot. Now, if I did not set a water source, they'll actually just kind of go to whatever water they can. But I know for sure that this water is safe. It's less of a thing here, but in some other areas where there are fish in the water, sometimes dangerous fish, sometimes dangerous animals like to be by water, so you might want to set a fishing or a water source that's safe. Alternatively, in the future, I could come down here to this layer. I think that layer is the only layer I could do it. Yeah, come down to this layer. Now I could actually build a well and set that well as a zone to get water from. I pressed I again to go back to the zones, and you can see here water source is highlighted since I've hit W. Now, I could also make this a fishing zone. Press F, and as you can see, water source and fishing is highlighted. I could actually make it every single one of these if I wanted to, but I don't. So remember that I'm just canceling all these now. Remember that zones can be anything or nothing. I'm actually... Okay, now I can't tell which ones I've disabled and which ones I have not. Okay, there. It's just a water source now, I think. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter terribly. So now I have a backup just in case the worst happens and I run out of alcohol. Now, alcohol is flammable, so if my alcohol storage ever gets hit by magma or something like that, it will all go boom. And I'll lose it all immediately, and any dwarves that happen to be taking a drink at that moment. But if they're that close to magma, they have a problem anyway. But that'll be for a different episode. Hopefully it never happens, but if it does, that's alright. That'll be nice and fun. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it for this episode here. I mostly just wanted to cover drinks and how to handle drinks. There's a bunch of different ways to get drinks. You can make them, you can trade for them, or there's a bunch of different types of drinks you can make, actually is what I should say. Is you can make them at the still, you can trade for them. For the most part, I'll be using plump helmets. And again, as you saw before, I'm going to hit Q to go to these list of tasks. If I press A to add a new task, and it looks like I can't brew from drinks anymore. Well, why not? Interesting. Press Q. Add. For some reason he can't. Maybe it's because the list is full. I'm actually not sure why he can't do that. Anyway, as you can see, whoop, that was my announcements page. Sorry about that. Let's add a new task. As you can see from brew drink from plant, he's not going to care, or she's not going to care which plant she uses. So if we have a bunch just sitting around somewhere, she'll go to the closest one. Now in the next episode, I'm going to talk probably about food, and then the one after that I'll talk about how to organize all these different items that we have lying around to help make it easy to, let's say we only want to make drinks out of plump helmets, or let's say we only want to make doors out of chert, or let's say we only want to make wood or wooden things out of plum trees. There's a way we can do that using stockpiles, and I'll get to that in a few episodes. But for now, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.